Hello, I'm Linda Thomas Greenfield, and I have the honor of representing the United States at the United Nations. I'm thrilled to have the chance to be part of this summit, and I'm thrilled to see students from HBCUs leading the charge through the Green Fund to tackle the climate crisis. Thank you for hosting this event along with your partners. As the proud mom of an HBCU graduate, I know how committed you are to the hard work of racial justice. And as we know all too well, climate justice is key to racial justice. After all, communities of color bear a particularly heavy burden from climate change and pollution. Due to climate-driven changes here in the U.S., Black children are much more likely to be hospitalized or die from asthma than white children. Black people also are more likely to live in areas most affected and damaged by climate change-induced flooding. We've all seen the devastating effects that extreme weather events have had on communities of color, including the damage wrought by hurricanes in my home state of Louisiana. And for over a month, people in Jackson, Mississippi were cut off from clean water after floodwaters overwhelmed the city's water treatment system. This is yet another damning example of how the climate crisis and decades of racial injustice have hurt majority Black cities. Now we have a duty, an obligation to correct for past injustices and ensure our children have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and a healthy environment to live in. The HBCU Green Fund perfectly embodies these aims. Your work has cut energy and water usage, it has reduced the carbon footprint of campuses, and it has engaged students through the HBCU Sustainability Fellows Training Program. Of course, no one expects you to change our country or our world on your own. The hard work of climate justice starts on the grassroots level, but it needs to be picked up by everyone else, by businesses, by philanthropy, and of course, by governments. For our part, climate justice is at the forefront of President Biden's agenda. The Inflation Reduction Act, which President Biden signed into law just last month, is particularly transformative. The IRA is the single largest investment in climate and energy in America's history. It puts billions of dollars toward environmental and climate grants for communities that have faced long-standing and disproportionate pollution. But as we address climate change here at home, we must also remain clear-eyed about the fact that this is a global challenge. This is a crisis for every nation on every continent, and this is especially true for African people and countries. For our friends, our relatives, and our ancestral homes. Just look to sub-Saharan Africa, which experiences even more devastating droughts every year. This, in turn, has triggered a dire food insecurity crisis. In the Horn of Africa alone, 50 million people are suffering from acute food insecurity. 50 million people. It is almost unimaginable, but it is the dark reality. Addressing this kind of global crisis requires all of us to come together. It requires bold, sustained, collective action. And there's no better forum for collective action than the UN. It was created precisely to solve global challenges, and it was created to give every single country a seat at the table as we solve those challenges. So I'm proud that at the UN, we recently established the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. This forum brings independent experts together to address issues such as climate change that affect the livelihoods of African descendant people. And I was particularly proud that Professor Justin Hansford, an HBCU professor, was elected to serve as an independent expert for that forum. I can also tell you that everyone at the UN is gearing up for COP27, where we're looking forward to pushing for strong, tangible climate commitments. And frankly, I think if world leaders take a cue from the work of change makers like you, we will meet our goals. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your leadership, for your passion, and for your example. You inspire us, you motivate us, and you give us hope for a cleaner, better future. Thank you.
Thanks to our Creator and our ancestors who made the long voyage from the motherland through the Atlantic Ocean to here, Lazaretto Creek, where thousands of souls are laid at the bottom of the ocean. Thousands of souls who made the decision that rather than be a slave, they would be buried in the sea, in their graves, and go home to their Lord and be free. We call forth the thousands of names, unknown souls, who made that unfortunate voyage to become the labor, the extraction of souls for profits, for white supremacy. We call forth all the sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles, all of those families who made that voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. As we open the Conference of the Parties 27 to address the issues of climate change, we give thanks for those shoulders upon whom we stand that created a moment such as this. We pour these libations to the waters that brought our souls to the so-called New World. We welcome you to our pre-COP summit. May your lives be enriched. May your community work be empowered. And may you rise to the occasion of being a climate justice torch bearer. We give thanks to the millions of souls who made it possible for us to be here today. Ashe, 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 Adukwe.
Greetings and welcome on behalf of the HBCU Grain Fund Board of Directors, staff, friends, sponsors, partners, and incredible Sustainable Africa Future Network. Today, we open our pre-COP27 virtual summit featuring contributions from across sub-Saharan Africa. But this event would never have been possible without the phenomenal support of our presenting sponsor, Nike, our sustaining sponsor, Dream.org, and so many friends and volunteers that worked tirelessly to bring you what we believe is an incredible and inspiring event. We align very well with Nike's commitment to people, planet, and play. As environmental justice advocates, we believe environment is where we eat, sleep, study, work, play, and pray. So we have very good synergy with our presenting sponsor. We also are so proud to have contributions from across the continent, from Kenya and Uganda all the way across to Senegal and Burkina Faso. You are in store for wonderful projects where people at the grassroots level are working to adapt, mitigate, and restore ecological balance. So we are available every day on demand, and also we will be with you for the next 30 days. So if you happen to miss anything that's presented over the next 5 days, please come back. You're able to access this for a full month. So with that, I thank you. A very, very special thanks goes out to our UN ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield, who is just amazing. We adore her, we follow her leadership, and we so appreciate the work that she is doing on behalf of the United States. We also want to thank all of our HBCUs, but in particular, Howard University, Florida A&M, Spelman, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta University, and our very first accredited HBCU, Lincoln University. You will hear from them later in the week. We want to thank Dr. Mildred McLean for working tirelessly to bring forward the United States environmental justice contribution. And with that, I will say no more and leave it to you to enjoy the pre-COP27 Africa and Diaspora Summit.
Agriculture, but the unexpected long dry seasons and the unlimited rains makes life unpredictable and increasingly difficult for farmers. Animals die while walking long distances to look for water, and in the process, many of the animals cannot have their lives. They lose their lives due to walking when they are thirsty and walking long distances to look for dams where they can at least get some water. It is anticipated that at least every year we have to lose people to floods. For example, occurrences in the western region, that is Kasese, where River Nyamwamba breaks its banks. In Uganda, floods are known to kill people at least every year in occurrences like in the western region, in Kasese district, where we have River Nyamwamba that busts its banks at least every year, and it kills a number of people. And this has been caused due to climate change and most of our people. I managed to go to Kasese one time after an occurrence of the floods, when River Nyamwamba busted its banks and killed a number of people, destroyed a lot of hospitals, the schools which were in that same place. A lot of people lost their lives, lost their property, lost their livelihoods, culture, and also plantations, ruining agriculture and a lot more. In Uganda, the impacts of the climate crisis have been witnessed in several ways, whereby when it rains a lot and it destroys people's crops. Such natural occurrences happen, and the worst impact of it all is that our people are not informed, and therefore we are having several projects in which we try to create awareness about the climate crisis and its implications amongst the people in different rural communities where they are most affected by the climate crisis, but they don't know much about what causes the climate crisis. Under our environmental education for sustainability project, we travel into different schools and communities while sensitizing young people about the importances of environmental responsibility and why they should take care of the environment, why they should be stewards of the environment. And through this project, we've been working along with different activists in Uganda.
Intersections are like how everything is interconnected. So it's like we are in one system, you know? And if one part of the system is damaged, eventually the whole system will be damaged. If it's a puzzle, you can arrange all the pieces, but if one piece of the puzzle is missing, then the puzzle will never be complete. So that is what it means to say the intersections of climate change. That when the global temperatures rise, gender equality is going to be affected.
And outside Uganda, and majorly most of the projects we have been in partnership with the Rise Up movement that is founded by Vanessa Nakate, and where we have been traveling to different schools and communities taking the gospel of climate education so that we can eradicate climate illiteracy. In this project, we go on collecting plastics from different communities, and through collection of these plastics, we clean them. After cleaning them, we start the fire, we put them in fire, we separate them according to how thick they are, so that we can be able to recycle them. In this recycling mindset project, we recycle plastics into building materials like pavers, and we are hoping to recycle more products in this project, the recycling mindset. We hope to recycle building bricks. We have been recycling walking pavers, compound pavers, but in future we hope to even recycle tiles, building tiles, roofing tiles. So we have the capability of doing all this through plastics. We have been able to recycle these products with some volunteers from different parts of the world. For example, when we get volunteers to come through, we show them how we do it, and we take them through process by process, and they see how the final product comes out, and this is how our final product looks like. And we have been working with different young people, and we hope if we get help, for example, if we get the shredding machine, this shredding machine can help us to have the work done easier. We need the plastic boiling machine. If we get this plastic boiling machine, we can be able to at least recycle more products. If we can get the molding machine, which can at least enable us to have finished products in a short period of time, a lot of finished products in a short period of time. So such kind of help is needed, and if at all we can get this help, we can easily get it done in a short period of time. We can recycle a lot of plastics, and this can help us to reduce the problem of environmental pollution, poor plastic disposal, and also it can help us to restore our environment. in partnership with different organizations here in Uganda, we have been able to plant trees to make sure that we restore our forests that are sold off to business people. For example, we have a lot of forests that have been sold off to sugarcane investors so that they can plant sugarcanes, and at the end of the day, Uganda has been left with a few forest reserves since these ones have been sold off by the rich people, the policymakers themselves, the government.
Hi everyone, my name is Evelyn Acham. I'm a climate activist from Uganda. I work with Rise Up Movement as a national coordinator and a member of Fridays for Future. And today I'm starting the project of planting the target is planting 9 million fruit trees in the whole of Uganda in households. This is because most of the time people find it hard to cut down fruit trees, and usually they cut down the normal trees. So when we plant fruit trees in households, these trees will be able to grow and people will be able to get fruit from these trees, So we are starting today to plant the trees, and it's an honor that I have fellow activists joining me today, and I'll be teaching you more in the nearby future about the importance of having trees in our homes and in our communities. Ate nga solutions ezimu ezo ez'okuyambako obutonde okuddawo kwe kusimba miti. Kati fenga ffe tutambula mu maka nga tugaba emiti, naddala emiti egy'ebibala. Kubanga tumanyi nti omuti gw'ekibala omuntu tagenda gutema, ajja sooka kwerowooza nnyo nga tannagutema, kubanga amanyi ajja funamu ekyokulya, ajja funamu ekibala. Kati simanyi oba wano wawo oba okwangizaawo, naye waba nga wawo ekyokubiri obadde okkiriza tukuwa omuti. Nga twe tukuwa tusobola okuyambako tugusimbe, tubasimbyewo kimaama eri wansi. Era tulinawo ogwa ovacado n'egy'omuyembe. Naye ndowooza we give her two, katugeraku ogw'omuyembe n'ogwa ovacado. Ate kati tukusaba tuba tugusimbye ogulabirire, gule bulungi, kubanga omuti ogukuze gwe gusobola okukola ki? Okuuma obutonde okusinga buno omuto. Okukkirire buli kanaku gusobole okufuna amazzi bulungi kukule. Kale kati osobola tulagako awo oguteeka, nawe osobola okujja olabe nga tugusimbawo. Enkumbi eriwa? Okay.
Through the Climate Live project, in this project we have been able to work with different musicians using entertainment platforms like comedians, musicians, hip-hop artists, R&B, raga, dancehall artists, putting them on a stage with climate activists and speakers to create awareness about climate change using music, because music speaks where words fail, and we've been all along calling upon policymakers to amend policies that are in favor of our environment, but this has not yet been done. So and the biggest number of our population is not aware about the implications of the climate crisis, and this is why we use different platforms. We realize that through music a lot of people can understand and get the message. So this is why we use music as a medium, so that we can pass our voices. And some of these artists are influencers. They have a big following. So when the people in the communities listen to what they say, at least they take it serious in one way or the other. So this has been benefiting on several occasions. It has helped us a lot.
It is important. Climate is very important.
You know, what's very interesting
Yes.
is that when you see a community of young people
Yeah.
dedicated to convey a message,
Yeah.
you know, it becomes a very important platform
Yeah.
to pay attention to it.
Amazingly.
Due to the fact that, you
Yeah.
know, to see that in Uganda we have young people who are indeed concerned about the climate
Yeah.
and the well-being of our communities and the sanitation in the spaces we are living in.
Yeah.
You know, it really shows that they are participating in a form of solution-driven idea
And the formal cause.
that they want to improve in their communities.
Yeah.
You know, so we are here to stand in solidarity with such a message.
Yeah.
You know, where we need to encourage, you know, not only through the music, but through all the careers and different platforms that we have.
And every person from every walks of life.
They should be able to take this message seriously and understand that the matters of the universe, the matters of the earth, really are matters that pertain to our well-being, and that we all need to be actually aware that we need to engage in those conversations.
And it is everybody's role and everybody's
Young
responsibility.
and old. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Flower at this beautiful climate change event. A lot of people always want to see Babaluku perform, but I'm more impressed when young people get a chance to get on stages and rock them and represent where they're from, represent our ancestors, represent their heritage proudly. And there's no better place to be than this place, to MC Flower. How do we start it off? How do we blow it off? How do we blow it off? How do we blow it off? Yeah. 1, 2, 2, check it. Okay. Climate change, the judgments to run about to give it up on the range, it's all it got. But when the water want to hold it body, but I can send you want to have a child, I want to walk it up. Bakoboka, bakomeza chibida, bakugamba abole kuna kwe chisikirize, nabugundigo kati wakobereko mukipo boze kubona mugundi obubulira, kintu kyabwe tajja mutuye ngombo, tetobugamba tumatu ziwuliriza, ekyo kyabwe jo flower, amagezi gavaawa, wakajja wotegera ebyobuwangwa. Abana bamwe kubasomezi naffe twasobola okukola babangula ku bwongo mutegeere nti kikulu nnyo okujjumbira ebya kalayimenti ekitegeeza ebikwata ku buwangwa okweyonja osimba miti kubeerawo nga fenna gundi tukkubiza entono z'abadadde si bukoko gundi tetwava Big up the MC Flower. You know, this is what we do on a daily. You know, making sure that we pass our messages to the culture and the things that young people enjoy to do. Something like hip hop. A lot of young people love to freestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I come to talk about the Climate Live Uganda, and with me is a beautiful young lady, a climate activist, someone who is fighting for the future, someone who is fighting for your great-great-grandkids, and for the future, a green, brighter future. Let her introduce herself to you.
Hello everyone, my name is Leah Nampiera. I'm a climate activist from Uganda. I'm a team leader of Fridays for Future Uganda and a founder of Back the Trees project.
Leah, what brings you, what catches your eye to come and participate in the Climate Life Uganda?
My main focus of being here is to raise awareness about the changing climate that is happening all over the world. Because my main focus in my activism is raising awareness, especially among the young generation, so that we create a generation that cares about the environment.
Oh yeah, that's nice. With awareness, I think you have done the best and one wonderful job. But what is missing is the action. What have you done to see to the betterment of the climate of the world?
As a climate activist, I raise awareness on my social media platforms. I also do school strikes on climate every Friday as a way of calling for serious climate action from our leaders and from every individual. I started up a project called Birthday Trees, where I celebrate people's birthdays by planting trees. I think this is an opportunity for everyone to give back to the dying planet and encourage everyone out there to take on this casting. I started a petition called Ban Plastic Surgery, which we can sign online. The plastic business is booming, but plastic waste is ending up in our water bodies. Plastics are a threat to human life and to the life in the water. So I think we should all sign this petition, and our country has tried to ban the plastic so many times, but nothing is done. It's not being enforced. So when we sign this petition, I think it will be a demand for our leaders.
That's nice. What I've liked from Leah Namgira is that she has not just stopped, or she has not just striked with the ban of Kavera or the stop of Kavera, but she has even come up with signing petitions that will help her, that will help the climate and the environment come to its natural self, that will help the climate come back to the green we want. The next question may be that if you're given chance to amend a law about the climate, what would that law be? If you're to amend it in a country like Uganda, what would that law be, and how efficient will it be in the world?
I think very many laws have been passed about the environment, and there are very many laws in existence, but they are never enforced. The first thing I would like to ask is, let them enforce the laws that are there, because those are the necessary laws. And then the other thing I would like the people in power from all nations, let them declare a climate emergency, because we're in a climate crisis, and also treat the climate crisis as an emergency, because this is a threat to human life.
Once again, I would like to ask you, what makes you support Climate Life Uganda?
What makes me support Climate Life Uganda is the ambition they have to raise awareness in Uganda and all over the world. And I encourage everyone to join Climate Life Uganda because it's a good platform and organization.
You have heard it from a climate activist. Please join us. Please come work hand in hand with us. Join her. Sign that petition that she's going to be putting on those online platforms, ladies and gentlemen. You can follow her on her social media handles and sign that petition. She's going to give you all that information right now.
Yeah, you can all follow me on all my social media handles. I use Leah Namgira, and also go sign my petition online. It's #BanPlasticCJ. Thank you so much. Treat the climate crisis as an emergency.
Bears the brunt of the climate emergency. A new report finds greenhouse emissions from the United States caused nearly $2 trillion in damages to other mostly poor countries through heat waves, droughts, and crop failures since 1990. This includes $310 billion in damage to Brazil, $257 billion in damage to India, $124 billion to Indonesia, $104 billion in damage to Venezuela, Venezuela and $74 billion in Nigeria. Scientists at Dartmouth College published their research in the journal Climatic Change and say it could shape international climate negotiations between poor nations and rich countries that burn more coal, oil, and gas. Meanwhile, a new Greenpeace UK report makes the link between the climate emergency and the legacy of colonialism, which it says, quote, established a model through which the air and lands of the global south have been used as places to dump waste the global north does not want. A study by CARE International found the 10 most underreported humanitarian crises in 2021 were concentrated in the global south, with 6 in Africa alone. For more, we go to Kampala, Uganda, to speak with climate justice activist Vanessa Nakate, author of A Bigger Picture, My Fight to Bring a New African Voice to the Climate Crisis. In a Twitter thread this week, Vanessa lamented how little Western media covers the disproportionate impact of the climate crisis on Africa. Vanessa, welcome back to Democracy Now! Tell us what the world should understand about what's happening, not only in Uganda, but on the African continent as we deal with this global climate emergency.
Thank you so much. It's important for the world to know that the climate crisis hasn't just started. The climate crisis has been affecting the lives of so many people right now. When I speak from my country, because of the rising global temperatures, we have seen changes in weather patterns that have caused, events like floods, like landslides and droughts. Currently, over 500,000 people in the region of Karamoja are starving because they have no food to eat. And when you go beyond Uganda, we are seeing a drought that has left over 20 million people with no access to food in the Horn of Africa. So what I want people to understand is that the climate crisis has been here. It has been impacting the lives of so many people on the African continent, which is responsible for less than 4% of the global emissions. But while Africa is on the front lines of this crisis, it is not on the front pages of the world's newspapers.
Vanessa Nakate, as you point out, Africa is responsible for less than 4% of global emissions. And of course, the cumulative population of Africa is just over 17% of the global population. Now, you recently retweeted an article headlined 7 Stunning Facts About How Climate Change is Hitting Africa the Hardest. Among those facts, almost 250 million Africans will face water scarcity in just 3 years, that is by 2025. In southern Africa, tropical storms displaced 500,000 people in just 3 months this year, and 1 in 3 deaths from extreme weather occur in Africa. Could you elaborate on this and why you think the coverage of this is so limited?
Well, first of all, I'll say that media has a huge responsibility to cover the climate crisis, but it has a much bigger responsibility to cover the climate crisis in the places where people are already suffering some of the worst impacts. When we talk about things like food scarcity, things like water scarcity, these are things that are already happening right now in the African continent. For example, in the region of Karamoja, like I've said, in Uganda, people are struggling to find something to eat, to find water. In the Horn of Africa, over 20 million people are struggling to find food, to find water, and in the process, even the people's livestock are perishing. So when we say, that water scarcity is going to be a challenge for so many people on the African continent in just 3 years, it doesn't mean that the scarcity will start when those 3 years are finally finished. It is something that is happening right now. When we talk about people being forced to leave their homes to find somewhere to stay, it's not that is something that is coming in the few years. It is something that is already unfolding. We know that over 86 million Africans are going to be forced to leave their homes, to look for places where they can stay, where they can exist. because of the climate crisis. Same with climate change. When we talk about the climate crisis going to escalate and affect so many communities, so many people in just a few years, it doesn't mean that the crisis is coming in those years. It means that it's already happening right now, but it's just going to make the lives of so many people harder and affect the livelihoods of so many communities.
And Vanessa, a recent study showed on top of this massive climate crisis that Africa is facing, that many countries in Africa, 11 of them, will have to spend 5 times more on climate adaptation than they do on healthcare. Among these 11 countries, Cameroon, Chad, the DRC, and Sudan, these countries are among the least to contribute to global emissions. On average, they emit 27 times less per person than the global average, not even the average of countries in the north. So could you explain what climate adaptation involves and why there's so little financing for it for these countries that face the worst effects and have been responsible for so little of the emissions?
Yes, I'll first of all say that that's one of the inequalities, the horrible inequalities of the climate crisis, that those who are not responsible are suffering the worst impacts, and they have to spend so much for mitigation and adaptation of their communities. We know that $100 billion was promised for vulnerable communities, vulnerable countries that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. But it was only promised and it wasn't delivered. But it's important for people to know that the $100 billion is no longer enough. The climate crisis has pushed so many countries in Africa in places where they cannot adapt anymore. We are experiencing loss and damage in so many places. So now the demand is not just for climate finance, for mitigation and adaptation. There is a demand for a loss and damage facility to address the loss and damage that is already happening. As the climate crisis escalates, people cannot adapt to starvation. People in the Horn of Africa can't adapt to starvation. People can't adapt to the loss of their livelihoods. They can't adapt to the loss of their cultures, the loss of their identities as this crisis escalates. So we've moved from a place of demanding for $100 billion to saying that even the $100 billion is no longer enough. More climate finance is needed, not in promises, real money for communities to be able to adapt, to be able to mitigate, and also in addition to that, to address the loss and damage that is affecting so many people.
Vanessa Nakate, yeah, I think what's happening in the United States is a microcosm of what's happening in the world. President Joe Biden created an Office of Climate Change and Health Equity within the Health and Human Services Department to prepare the nation's healthcare system to deal with the growing and inevitable disparate health effects of extreme heat and dangerous storms and worsening air pollution. While that office has been created to deal with climate effects, the inequity of them, Congress has not funded it. And then you look at the rest of the world and the relationship of the United States, the massive effects of our policies and climate and the effects it has in places like Africa. But I wanted to ask you about the war in Ukraine and talk about this coming together of both the effects of the war in Ukraine on Africa, as well as coming on top of this ongoing climate emergency.
Yes, I will start by saying that we are in a system that is allowing so many of these problems to happen. It's like we are in one room, and if one part of the room is affected, eventually the entire building will come crumbling down. If it's a puzzle, if one part of the puzzle, if a piece of the puzzle is missing, then that puzzle can never be complete. So a system can never be complete if one of the things is not well. And we know that the war in Ukraine is a war that is being funded by fossil fuels. And many activists, many people have been organizing to demand a shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy, because we've seen that fossil fuels are not only destroying our planet and the lives of so many people, but they are also fueling and funding wars in many parts of the world. So it's important to note that we have to change the system to address many of these challenges. I would also like to comment on something that you've said of what was created by President Biden. That is one of the things that we are trying to talk about, that the communities that are being impacted right now, they don't have the resources to put in place, the necessary bodies to help people, address issues of health when it comes to the climate crisis. But the countries in the global north have these resources. They have the resources to adapt, but they are not extending these resources to the most affected communities. When we see how the climate crisis is impacting the health of so many people on the African continent and beyond that across the global south, many of the countries don't have the much needed resources to address these challenges. So the global north has the resources for themselves, but it's time to extend those resources for the communities that are on the front lines, for the communities that didn't cause this crisis. Because if we are to address climate change, then we shouldn't leave anyone behind.
And Vanessa, finally, you've spoken out against the East African crude oil pipeline also being built by the French oil giant Total and the China National Offshore Oil Corporation. If and when it's completed, it will be the longest heated crude oil pipeline in the world. Can you talk about your concerns about this pipeline and specifically the areas that it's expected to run through?
Yes, the pipeline is expected to go from Uganda to Tanzania. And many of the worries that we have, especially as activists, is that this pipeline is going to displace thousands of people in Uganda and also in Tanzania. And it's going to go through a number of national parks, affecting the wildlife habitats. It's going to go through it's going to go through over 200 rivers. It's going to go through Lake Victoria, which is the largest inland freshwater lake, in Africa. It's a third of it is going to go through the Lake Victoria Basin. And over 40 million people depend on the waters of Lake Victoria. So there are worries about how it's going to impact the water sources of the people in our communities, how it's going to impact the national parks, but above all, how it's going to impact our planet and lead to the rise in the global temperatures. And as activists, we face many challenges, especially in our communities, where people think that we are against the development of our countries. We are not against the development of our countries. We want the best for our countries. And we know that there is no future in the fossil fuel industry. What our countries need is a transition to clean energy, a transition to renewable energy, because this is something that will help lift people out of poverty. Because I know and understand that our countries are trying to lift their communities out of poverty. And corporations like Total are taking advantage of this, knowing how much oil, coal, and gas are causing so many, challenges in many communities. We are seeing some European countries run for gas still in Africa. So it's important for people to know that we want the well-being of our communities, the well-being of the people in our countries. We want the well-being of the economies of our countries, but we don't want it funded by fossil fuels because there is no future in that. We want a transition to renewable energy, to clean energy, to ensure that we not only have healthy people, but we also have healthy economies, a healthy planet, and a healthy future for all of us.
We live in a connected world, each of us connected to one another, connected to our environment, our country, and our planet. every action we take has an impact on those around us and has the potential to unlock new possibilities for those whose lives we touch every day. This is the ethos of Indalo Inclusive South Africa, upon which the concept of Indalopreneurship is established. Our vision is to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem that contributes to a thriving, inclusive, and green economy in South Africa. At the same time, we realize that as responsible caretakers of our planet, it is critical that each of us be aware that as we walk through the world, we must tread gently and care for the precious resources that are the lifeblood of this planet. Our tomorrow depends on the footprints we leave behind us today. As we empower a future generation of entrepreneurs, we want them to work towards a healthier, stronger, better South Africa that brings about positive societal and environmental impacts. Through our work, we are building partnership and enterprises which bring sustainability and growth, not only to their businesses, but to families, communities, our environment, and ultimately our country. Together with stakeholders from across the country and around the globe, we have helped grow startup enterprises and support them to adopt better ways of doing business in a way that is sustainable and not harmful to our environment. In this way, we support innovative entrepreneurial ideas and help mold champions who will go out into the world and in turn spread the message of positive, sustainable growth through equitable coexistence with our environment. This is what we mean when we say that we are planting the seeds today that will grow into the mighty forest of tomorrow and stand proudly against the wind. Our goal is one that resonates with those of millions, and our seeds are the beginning of greatness. While as a country, we are faced with the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, we are endowed with an abundance of ecological wealth, from our beautiful seas to the rolling plains of the north. As the custodians of this splendor, the responsibility lies with all of us to keep it safe, to help it grow, and to grow as one. Eco-inclusive entrepreneurship can help us stand up to these challenges that we face. We can find ways to rebuild our land and to heal the inequality and usher us into sustainable economic growth, while we protect our natural resources and benefit those that are at the base of the pyramid.
Indalo was set up and incorporated in 2017. And the history is really that of collaborative partnerships between a number of entities, primarily the SEED Global Partnership Program, which was established in 2002 here in South Africa by United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Development Program, as well as IUCN. There was a need to incorporate a South Africa-based entity that would have the technical capacity and financial capacity to support what we call eco and inclusive entrepreneurship in South Africa. Indalo was then formed to learn from the Global Seed Program and see if we could embed some of that knowledge into the South African landscape and therefore mobilize local resources as well as build our own technical capacity. And yes, indeed, we enjoy quite a lot of collaborative partnerships with a number of entities, including UNEP, UNDP. I think a lot of credit goes to partners such as Adelphi and the SEED Global Program that has really contributed in the setting up of the organization. So we have an anchor program funded by the Government of Flanders through their framework partnership with the South African government. It's a program that seeks to reap the potential for climate smart and eco-inclusive entrepreneurship. The partners such as UNEP, UNDP, Department of Science and Innovation, NCPC, are quite critical for our work at the Climate Innovation Center, with whom we have an MOU, and we housed within the premises of the Innovation Hub through that relationship. The Industrial Development Corporation, we have a very strong collaborative partnership with them. Their continued support in the work that we do, makes Indalo what it is today. We are a very small organization, but we have a very dedicated team. Our vision as an organization is to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem in South Africa that contributes to a thriving and inclusive green economy in the country. On a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, we strive as a mission, first of all, to foster partnership and dialogue among ecosystem players. We want to support, high-impact enterprises within the landscape. We also want to ensure that Indalo itself stands as a robust entity, because if we don't do that, the supporting of an ecosystem cannot exist.
Through careful mentorship and incubation of our entrepreneurs, we can be part of building strong communities and a green economic growth for South Africa. We, as Indalo, take our mission seriously. We live by our vision, and we strive to grow a better, healthier, stronger South Africa that we can proudly hand over to the next generation of caretakers. We are all part of the same vision, and we are sowing our seeds for the future.
The Just Transition is providing us with the opportunity to reset the way we are doing business and to build back better. This will ensure that we address the country's triple challenges: poverty, unemployment, and inequality.
I'm Matthew Slabane from Mpumalanga Kilisedi Tourism and Development, Pty Ltd, based in Emalahleni. We have rolled out an agroecology training center as part of the Just Transition initiative. It happens here in Emalahleni, where a lot of people have lost their jobs, especially from the mining companies, the power stations, and the steel industry. So we had an idea to initiate this agroecology training center as part of upskilling and supporting the paradigm shift and reduce dependency on the current mining companies. So just when we had the idea, we came into contact with Indalo, inclusive part of JTEP, and that boosted our idea with the training that they gave to us, the motivation that they gave to us, and the grant that they gave to us. It became like an igniter for us to actually start running. And as a result of all the support that we received, the training, technical training, the advices, the mentorship, that actually resulted in us being where we are. Today, we are training people, both theory and practical. Today, the people are working in the field. I'm proud to say we now have nearby community members who some of them are ex-mine workers, unemployed women who are heading families, and youth. In total, we've got about 35 people working here with 15 families benefiting.
My name is Thokozile Teledi. I'm an Indalopreneur, the founder of iTech Construction and Engineering. We are based at Emalahleni in Mpumalanga province. In Emalahleni, we have a lot of challenges, but as an entrepreneur, I targeted the challenge of shortage of water and unhealthy water to drink. So we started this program of water plant to purify water for our community, to sell it in an affordable price so that they can afford to buy drinking water. We use solar for our purification system to save our environment from the climate impact from using coal. We purified our water using macadamia nut filtration. We have partnered with Kusini Water. Kusini Water is playing a huge role. They are the ones who install the purification system, and they are the ones that are going to maintain the water plant. For employment, currently I'm the manager, and I have a sales lady and a driver who's going to deliver our water to our mines, our customers as a whole. For our future, we are planning to grow our business to have branches so that we can employ more people and they will be permanent. We are based at the school, Alex Mampani Primary School, where we are going to sell water to our nearest mines, hotel, guest house. The JTAB program has played a huge role in our business.
My name is Nation Pairukoto. I'm in Indalo entrepreneur at Just for Transition. I'm representing Batekeme Multipurpose Cooperative at Giyani, Kaula Village at Limpopo Province. We are in biogas. So biogas, we are integrated it in farming where we use the slurry to turn it into compost, where our farm we fertilize with the compost from the digester that is green. We are not using any fertilizer. Even to spray for the flies, we are using the water from the digester. We also use the drip irrigation. Since we started our cooperative, we have trained more than 500 women. 20 Indalo come to our life selecting me to be in Just for Transition program. They come with to give us money for borehole. Then Indalo again give us money to buy the solar to pump the water. When finding a solar, we started planting our vegetables. We want to train youth and women so that they understand more about when we talk about the pollution, we talk about climate change, they will understand. And when we say talking about green at our farm, they will understand because they will have knowledge that they will learn. So it will help us to scale our company to grow more doing green. For now, we managed to create 14 jobs. That is 5 in permanent, then we've got 9 seasonal. While they were supporting us even technically, they train us to do for paperwork everything that we see that it's very important to have our own office where we can do everything at our own for our farm and in a biogas. So this everything is the seed that Indalo has planted in us that created many seeds on us.
My name is Given Nwamba. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm from Gamakregeza in Komazi in Mpumalanga. My enterprise is TNK Greenhouse Technology that manufactures green charcoal briquettes from agricultural waste, a product that is saving the environment in terms of saving the trees. As we all know that the wood and the charcoal that they're using, they are causing deforestation out there. So with our charcoal, we are planning and hoping that we eliminate the CO2 and the deforestation. What JTAB did for our enterprise was really extremely remarkable. When they first met us, we were operating behind the house. We only had 1 machine, but today I'm standing right here in our own land with our own building with 2 machines extra. So it did a lot. It took us from 0, I would say, to 3. So it's really a great opportunity. We have 2 full-time employees at our enterprise, and we were fortunate enough to host the interns from municipality to gain life skills and understanding of how we manufacture our green charcoal. Technical support was really great. For the first time, I went for a boot camp. It was my first time, and I've learned a lot from business carnival and how to do a pitch to understand the whole sector of green economy. So it really was great in also developing our business plans and in understanding the financials of the business. I think we still need to grow as an enterprise. We believe that we still need to be mentored and be given the right direction to take as an enterprise. And also financial, we'll love to have more financial support to expand more into our businesses and purchasing the machines that we're looking for, because we need bigger machines to expand more and more and meet the demand in the market. My understanding of Just Transition is to get ourselves ready as enterprises, as communities, as we all know that we are facing the issue of climate change. Just Transition is there to assist us to mitigate the climate change challenges, and with our enterprise it will make sure that we also contribute to the local economy, to the local employment. When the time is for us to transition to a greener space, we will be ready for that time.
My name is Timisang Simono, founder of Egrets Farming that is based at Bergerach Village in Limpopo Province, and I'm an indalopreneur. Egrets Farming project is a green enterprise that is aimed at producing organic crop vegetables. Growing up, we were helping our old grannies to farm. So we were actually helping them on weekends when they were going to the farms. That's where we gained our experience. So after I completed my studies, I could see that there is some lack of employment. I started looking at the unemployment rate among our community, as it's one social issue that is currently hitting the nation. So you can imagine how hard it is going to hit the deep rural communities. As you can see around the rural villages, there are lesser employers, there are lesser enterprises where people can get employed. Since the inception of the program, we created about 2 jobs. At Egrets Farming, before Indalo can step in, we were actually using the electric generator to pump our water, and it was costly for us. We managed to get the solar system that we are now using to pump our water. That is using renewable energy, and it is free. So it actually reduced the cost. After Just Transition program, we also had an interest in contributing on saving our environment. That's one thing that we want now, to help us identify more tools, more equipment that can be used in a greener enterprise.
I'm Sam Rumula. I'm an indalopreneur. My enterprise is the Mringa. When I started the Samudungan project, I was thinking about my community, because my community is very far. I say better, I start to be a farmer. I like enterprise because when I plant it, I'm not going to remove it. It's for life. It's what I did, leave the crops to follow on the Mringa. That Mringa I'm selling for the Botanica. I'm supplying him. I'm employing about 17 people to start to come harvest. My dreams, I will say, if I can start to getting more than 20 to 30,000 when I start to processing, I think I'll be very happy, because I know 30 to 20 family is got the food. If I can plant more than 100,000 trees, I'll be very happy, because I can give a lot of my community work.
Siaweka. It sounds like a Zulu name, like we are working, but that is our tagline. It's actually a spin-off program from the Government of Flanders funded program of Exige, wherein we partnered with other grantees of the Government of Flanders, and these include in Gender CC and in the United Nations Environment Program. We actually looked at our portfolio of work and realized that there is a big gap that is visible in our work, in that we have not really focused on addressing issues of gender and maybe more specifically issues of women empowerment in our work. So we therefore coined Siaweka, which is the South African Women in Climate Change and Environment Award Program. And it identifies, established women-operated and women-owned, enterprises or businesses that have very strong inclination towards addressing the impact of climate change, or broadly, working in the green economy space in the country. And we recognize their efforts. And we're grateful to the partnership of Gender CC, UNEP, as well as the Climate Innovation Center.
The United Nations Environment Programme is mandated by the United Nations to be the agency that's specifically responsible for ensuring that the world's environment is kept under check. We are faced with a double challenge, the challenge of climate change and the challenge of a recovery of COVID-19 pandemic. And so as an organization, as UNEP, we are supporting South Africa. We are working with Indalo Inclusive at the moment to identify women business leaders, particularly in the climate change adaptation space. Climate change adaptation, again, is not a normal area of great interest for businesses, as it's more about building resilience and looking for businesses that support their families and their communities, but also contribute to addressing issues of perhaps lack of proper infrastructure, lack of food on the table, or lack of water within the community level. And therefore, this will be really interesting for us as we try and identify some of these women business leaders that can be role models for future businesses and future people that want to open businesses in this sector. We are looking forward to continuing our work with Indalo Inclusive to support small and medium enterprises that are anchored on the 3 pillars of sustainable development, which is basically social development, economic development, and environmental sustainability.
Mokhabisi Recycling is a 100% black female-owned entity. It's based in the heart of Johannesburg in the East Rand. And what we do here is that we collect recyclables from the communists and they bring it to our site. We wait for them and we pay them accordingly. We want to expand and also turn the plastics that we collect into granules. So we want to grow from where we are. I saw the Siaweka advertisement online, and I decided to actually take my chances in terms of entering, because I saw that there's potential as it wants to empower women in business. Mokhabisi employs 40 full-time people, and 26 it's female, and 16 it's male. Some of our ideas to become a more eco-friendlier is to partner with people in the green sector, with maybe NGOs, those that focuses mainly on the green sectors. Yeah, everyone should recycle and recycle. Do one thing and recycle. You see trash, I see treasure.
I'm too gorgeous to be sad today. I said my prayers, my shit's on the way, on delay. I sit back and I enjoy the day. I give her bliss and then I'm on my way. I'm out of this world. I feel good just because I feel like it. I feel right cause I feel like it. I get what I want on the daily cause I feel like it. I get it all cause I feel like it. Oh, fell in love with myself on a high note. I just bought myself a drink, I'm very welcome. I smell good and I taste good. Ask around, I am soul food. Don't do nothing unless I want to. Used to take myself for granted, so you need to. No more of that, no. Wrote myself a letter, said I love you. I fucking blushed too. Fool, look here, I'm too gorgeous to be sad today. I said my prayers, my shit's on the way, on delay. I sit back and I enjoy the day. I give her bliss and then I'm on my way. I'm out of this world. I feel good just because I feel like it. I feel right cause I feel like it. I get what I want on the daily cause I feel like it. I get it all cause I feel like it, oh. Now I live good, and I fuck good, and I'm good to myself, that's my whole mood. I'm a whole groove, with the attitude of a king and a lover and a friend too. You can come with, but I deserve peace. So don't fuck with my spirit, that will not do. If you're cool, I'm cool, ayy. I'm gon' win this thing, ayy. Won't let nothing stop me again. Pain away with you claiming myself back one day. One step at a time, I made friends with my mind. Now I wake up feeling fine. I'm a 9 out of 9. I am just what I like, ayy. Lights on. When I walk, how I walk, I turn lights on. I am not just anybody, I turn lives on. I'm on here to change the world and get my freak on. Yours and then some. Baby, look here, I'm too gorgeous to be sad today. I said my prayers, my shit's on the way. On delay, I sit back and I enjoy the day. I give her bliss and then I'm on my way. I'm out of this world, I feel good just because I feel like it. I feel right cause I feel like it. I get what I want on the daily cause I feel like it. I get it all cause I feel like it, oh. Now it's time to let go and leave it there. Yeah, oh, oh,
Acknowledging the change and its diverse effects on Earth's climate, it has become a common concern into humankind. Concern that human activities has contributed more in substantially growing the greenhouse gases. Concerned that human activities have been substantially increasing the atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases, that these increases enhance the natural greenhouse effects, and that these will result on average and in additional warming of the Earth's surface and atmosphere. These may adversely affect the natural ecosystem and humankind. Being aware of the role and importance in terrestrial and marine ecosystems of sinks and reservoirs of greenhouse gases, my friends and I have been working in the coastal region into restoration and protection of mangrove trees, which has a powerful carbon sink. That is, they sink up to carbon dioxide from the air to store in their roots and branches, as well as the sediment and collects around them. They do this so well that they can store up to 10 times more carbon than the tropical forests. In addition, you will agree with me that plastic has become the greatest enemy in our environment. And therefore, it came into attention. However, we plant more trees in our globe. Without solving the plastic issue, we shall be missing the mark. Having learned this, I mobilize young people whom we share the same passion to collect the plastic waste in urban and rural areas and forward them into the nearest recycling plants. We also conduct plastic eradication campaign to curb down these effects. I'm also happy to report the boost by the government of Kenya filing and implementing a policy to eradicate plastic bag use. Having said this and done, in conclusion, that people on the global south, we are the people who are most affected by the effects of climate crisis. And I would urge everyone, wherever you are, please take care of the ecosystem. We as youth in Kenya, we are working on our coastal line into the protection and planting of mangrove forests. This is not only beneficial to us, but generations and generations to come. My name is Sharon Gaki, a climate justice activist from Kenya and a striker of Fridays for Future. Thank you.
So I want to welcome you to this Zoom conversation, and I thought, Emmanuel Dennis, if you would share with our audience a bit about your background, where you're from, and how you came to be involved in environment and climate justice work.
Oh, thank you very much. As you have said, my name is Emmanuel Dennis. I come from Nairobi in Kenya. I have been involved in the work of youth entrepreneurship for many years now. A lot of experience with a lot of trainings for enterprises, for young people in communities, organizing young people into business opportunities. So earlier on in my life, I was involved with the Youth Entrepreneurship Summit, or rather the YES Network. And at the time, we were really discussing about a bottom-up approach to creating opportunities for young people. And with creating quite a huge network of young people across different countries in Africa, I noticed that we were focusing more on traditional enterprises. And at the time, the discussion around climate change was still very new and very complex. And so I dedicated my life to try and, convert youth groups and youth enterprises into green value chains. And so pretty much turning around the enterprise training for young people to be able to then focus more on what they can be able to do to either do adaptation work or do mitigation work, or pretty much build resilient communities. And so that has been now my focus over the last couple of years, since the year 2010, to be able to see more young people becoming change agents at community level. And as we know, climate change is affecting Africa most, yet Africa is the least contributor to carbon in the air. And so I have been, I'm now dedicating the next couple of years to be able to begin to build these youth groups at community level, and not just youth groups, now to really see community members coming up with projects and skilling them and providing them with the necessary support to ensure that they now have the front line driving the climate justice and climate change discourse at community level.
So we pretty much know that unemployment is a major issue across Africa, especially for young people. So how do you provide? I remember we first met in St. Louis, and doing so. Maybe talk about how it is that you're able to mobilize and provide training to generate opportunities, since unemployment is such a vast problem impacting communities across the continent.
So indeed, currently we have, with the advent of COVID, the situation of unemployment in communities has actually even skyrocketed. And our work has been really to try and find different networks that young people are consolidated in, and where there are no networks, we try and support them to be able to create these networks at community level. And right now, we are, through the Green Teams initiatives, we are launching what is known as the Greening Climate Actions Program. That is going to, run at community level. And within the Greening Climate Actions Program, it's going to be divided into 3 parts. The first part is on mitigation. The second part is on adaptation. And the third pillar is actually on resilience. And within these 3 areas, we find that there are opportunities that we can be able to create, not only to call young people to come up in action, to be able to call for climate justice, but rather to also focus more on projects that they can be able to do at community level, social impact projects that will have, a positive impact on the environment at community level. And these we are doing to be able to then begin to look at policy analysis that governments have already been able to pass. So we have climate change policies. But then these climate change policies can only make sense if they speak to realities at community level. So we are going to be doing an analysis of this and be able to provide reports to showcase that if a government has a climate change policy, is it addressing the real issues that community members are actually concerned about? And as we do that, we want to now initiate what is known as a participatory planning process, where we will be able to do civic awareness on climate change at community level. We will talk to elders to be able to, record indigenous knowledge on how they were able to, address issues of climate change at community level in the olden days, because we realize that this knowledge is actually disappearing, and we now need to be the holders of that information and pass it on to the younger generation. And so this is going to be converted into, podcasts. We're going to do publications that are going to be able to record some of this information. And then we'll be able to build a knowledge hub where people can be able to come and learn. But then we also want, as we even raise the awareness of what is actually happening on at community level, we will be able to try and also do training programs. And so we are going to work with, organized groups at community level. And that has been one of the organizing communities, has been one of the talents and, mission I have had over my last couple of years, to be able to just see that young people are organized into, positive change groupings at community level. But then again, right now, because climate is becoming the biggest crisis that is actually causing quite a lot of the problems that we are having. Look at poverty, food crisis at community level. We are looking at, increased temperatures. There is a scarcity of resources. And so if we are going to actually turn around these issues to be able to then support young people to come up with those value chains, we will be making more positive change than just, advocacy work. So leveraging on the networks that we have created before, we want to increase that base to be able to then include more people at community level, be it farmers. We need to figure out what are the practices they've been having at their farms. Can we be able to change that around so that then their farms can continue to be productive? But as they even do that, they should be doing something positive to be able to, reverse the effects that we've had on our environment. And so we have listed quite a number of things or projects that will need to be financed by private sector. But at the end of the day, all these projects must have a positive impact on the environment where their communities are actually living in.
So now at the tail end, you mentioned finance, and we are moving into, we're having this conversation in advance of COP27. And so this COP is in Egypt, which is in Africa, but it is also COP27. So that means 27 years of dialogue, conversation, commitments that have not necessarily been honored to the extent that Africa would need or the global South expects or deserves. That's in my own opinion. So as we head into COP27, what would you say is the agenda for Africa from the perspective of working on the ground with community networks? What is it that we need to collectively come away with? And that's for all people participating. But what would you see as the major outcome that would define COP27 as a success from your perspective?
So, I mean, we all know it is true that over 90% of the countries that are actually biggest polluters are actually in the West. Over 100% of the countries in Africa are the ones who are actually on the receiving end, where they're really affected most. And right now, as I am in Dakar, we've been attending the African Ministerial Conference on Environment. And this is also a pre-COP27 meeting to be able to consolidate the positions of African governments, African ministries of environment, to be able to then have a very solid case to be able to then present during COP27. But as Africa, we need to know exactly what we are asking for. We need climate justice. There are commitments that have been, from Glasgow, from Paris to Glasgow. There are some commitments that were given to certain nations to ensure that we get climate justice in Africa. But quite a number of these commitments have not been honored. And so we need to see action. More than rhetoric, we need to see action. But then a united Africa with its own agenda on exactly what they want to do at community level would be more consolidated, because at the end of the day, we see quite a lot of negotiations going on at COP27. While right now there is a consolidated effort to see that we have a common position. However, when we get to COP27, we see a manipulation of the bigger countries like the United States going to talk to individual countries and scattering them. So this time around, we really need to see a united force from Africa, supported by civil society, supported by private sector, to ensure that we have a common position. And that common position should not be rescinded by the big nations who are actually the biggest polluters. However, for me, and for the situation that we have in Africa today, we need to also see that we need to see action from individual countries at local level, supporting different initiatives that are actually addressing these issues. And there comes climate financing in all these issues. How do we ensure that we empower more community members, more community groups to be able to come up with real projects that will be able to then reverse the effects that we have on the environment? Because we can talk and talk and talk all policy issues, meet in conferences, but if we don't translate that into real action, real projects that are going to be able to begin to see a reversal of the effects that we've had, and it is possible that we can be able to do that. And so that would be what I would want to see coming out of Egypt, seeing more commitment going into real projects, and these real projects being financed so that then we can be able to have a reversal of what is actually going on.
So, do you have experience with projects that have been successful? Because oftentimes, especially from the West, people will think, oh, either the issue is so big it's insurmountable, or the people are so poor they can't do anything. Have you, over the years, have there been success stories that you can share? And when thinking of adaptation and mitigation, which is a term of art for those of us that work in the climate space, so it's just on one side prevention and the other side preparing for that which we couldn't prevent. So are there projects in each of those areas that you might point to that you consider to be success, and ways in which you could imagine initiative scaling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm currently involved in one of the projects that is actually doing chlorination, water chlorination at water sources in Africa. And this has been one of the biggest projects that is actually benefiting from carbon credits. And so by using chlorine dispensers at community level, you eliminate the whole aspect of community members using open fires to boil their water. So you provide them with safe water using chlorination, and at the end of the day, you actually reduce drastically the dependency on firewood, the dependency on cutting down trees, and that way you see more thriving communities. So we have, renewable energy projects that are currently being done on a large scale, but they could also equally be done in a very small scale at community level. We need to reduce the dependency on, synthetic fertilizers that are coming from the West by spoiling our farms. And that way, if we use organic fertilizers that we can be able to manufacture locally, we'll be able to not only create opportunities for the enterprises that are manufacturing organic fertilizer and thus creating jobs, but we will also see productivity in farms. And that way you'll be able to create food security for our communities. And that will have a very large impact on millions of people who are actually starving today. We have other, like cook stove projects. We have tree planting projects that can actually, and when today we see quite a lot of people planting trees, but there are other trees which are actually destructive to the environment. And so we need to be able to know exactly what kinds of trees we are planting, so that then they actually rejuvenate our soils. They will be able to turn around what we have. So we have quite a few examples of researched projects that are touching on, agriculture, that are touching on manufacturing, that are touching on quite a number of, development pillars that we can be able to implement in a very small scale or even a large scale that will not only create opportunities for young people and community members, but will also be seen to have a very big impact on the destruction that we have seen happening around our environment at community level. So we have these, and we continue to do research and development. Developing research papers to be able to create, to be able to find more other opportunities. Like for example, today we have the issue of plastics, which is one of
your volume went down just a bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Is it okay now? No, it's still low. It's still a little bit low.
Oh. And how about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So we are doing more research, and I was actually pointing out to the issue of plastic pollution. We have community youth groups that are actually collecting plastic, but we can also, create opportunities where we can sort our waste at source. And, like for example, currently we are dependent on plastics and they're polluting our seas, they're polluting our lakes, and really causing quite a huge destruction across. And so we need to now stop using plastic and getting into more, biodegradable material that will be able to help, our communities. So these are real projects that we can be able to do. We can do quite a lot in terms of city planning. For example, Kenya today is developing 47 towns or 47 counties. We do not need to do the same mistakes that other countries have done by ensuring that we actually build green cities. And with green cities, we'll be able to see more opportunities, more green opportunities being created for our communities to be able to thrive in. So we have an array of projects that we think can be implemented, and will be able to have an impact on millions of people only if we be able to get that policy support, but also, that support from private sector for these projects to actually be implemented.
So interestingly, the ministers' climate meeting is there in Senegal, where we know Senegal has recently discovered, I know oil, and I believe oil and gas. And so, which is a fossil fuel or fossil fuels that cause a bit of the problem. What is your thinking around the discovery of potentially vast amounts of fossil fuels in an African nation? And at the same time that as climate advocates, we have had a position of keep it in the ground. And swirling around now are things like carbon taxes, all sorts of ways to kind of get around leaving it in the ground. So what is the thinking, or what are you hearing about? On the one hand, it can be a boon for development, but that would be in the old traditional dirty approach. Do you see a path forward for Senegal and other places that might have these new discoveries that can make a difference, and there is an intense need for energy and to develop?
So I know our African countries will be able to rush to the opportunity of, discovering oil, but we do not need to make the same mistakes and using the same dirty methods to be able to then, bring out these development that we are talking about. I mean, we can use clean energy. We can be able to use solar energy. We can be able to use renewable energy in all these countries, and they will create multiple opportunities for our nations. So all the destructive discoveries that we are seeing today, we need to actually begin to stop and think about a better opportunity. Oil is good, yes, it's going to create opportunities, but how much destruction is it going to have to African nations? I know there are companies that are coming in to be able to do the discoveries, but then can we even begin to think about clean energy? Like there was a commitment by the new government in Kenya to be able to have 100% clean energy by 2030. Those are the kinds of commitments that we need to be able to see coming out of all these African nations. I know Kenya, we try to do oil discovery in the north, but it's been very expensive. And at the end of the day, we found that it's not sustainable. And so all this needs to be stopped so that then if it is coal, if it is oil, and at the end of the day, the dangers to the environment far more surpass the development that we are going to have. Let us refocus our development and begin to think of new ways that will make our environment more better than, because if we do the same mistakes that the US has done, that Germany has done, that Russia has done, we will be the next frontier for destruction. And so let's hold that position as Africa and begin to think more better ways on bringing about development. And that development cannot be done by the same mistakes, by the same dirty methods that other countries have done. So we need to stand strong and come up with, our advocacy campaigns to be able to actually stop those kinds of campaigns going on in Africa today for oil discovery and replace it with renewable energy and clean energy. And I know those opportunities can be actually created.
So as we come to a close, what are you most looking forward into the future? What are you most excited about, and what keeps you up at night?
I am more excited about the curiosity of our community members to begin to, find their place on this whole global discourse around climate change. I am excited that more young people are getting engaged, and they want to get engaged on a solution that will be able to make their livelihoods better. What keeps me at night is, can we be able to, make more discoveries that will put our young people to work, and that work will actually have a positive impact, social impact in their communities. I am very worried about the lack of, a thought process, a creative thought process with our governments, because the current inflation that we are seeing around the world, COVID has made it even more difficult, yet we are faced with one of the biggest challenges, the environmental challenge that we have today. However, we can get more change agents. We can get more communities to become communities of practice for more productive ways on how we can be able to rejuvenate our environment. And that keeps me awake. That gives me hope that we can be able to have more people, joining this movement to be able to begin to see a new future. And that new future, it's more urgent today than it was. The destruction that we are seeing is coming in a very high speed, but I know we can be able to turn it around and make our communities livable for our generations and our future generations.
So are there ways that climate advocates, especially those of us that will be coming to COP from the US and other, especially people of color and African Americans specifically, that we can be supportive of the agenda as we head into COP27? Can you imagine ways in which we have a unique relationship with our government because it is our own, but as we talk about a collective agenda, could you imagine African and people throughout the diaspora aligning with that unified African agenda and perhaps coming away from COP with a success in that regard?
COP is coming to Africa this time round. We need, and I know the diaspora plays a very, very positive role in development because of, remittances that are coming back into Africa. And as we even send those remittances, as diaspora sends those remittances into Africa, can we begin to think about, supporting projects that will have a positive impact on our environment? But as we even go to COP27, can we create side events with indigenous groups from Africa, begin to understand what they are doing and mobilize support from out there so that then these real projects that are actually going to transform our communities are given the support that they need in order to, be replicated at community level. But also, we need to share. We need to be able to share, but also put a lot of pressure to our government in order to begin to refocus on to, supporting real projects that are actually going to have a positive impact. I know there are bilateral conversations that are ongoing. There are countries who are, receiving resources from, World Bank and all, but quite a lot of this impact is not actually being seen on the ground. But by connecting real groups to the diaspora, real groups and real projects to, the kind of support that is available, would be a good way to be able to network and understand intuitively. But also just breaking down that language, that very complex language that has been left to scientists and activists, so that then even more community members can be able to know what their role is on climate change, but then in a more simple way for them to be able to then come up with ways in which they can be able to contribute towards that.
What I can add on is that youth voices must be amplified, heard, empowered, so that because it has been degraded, they try to create also a football pitch, which is so devastating. And as you can see, there are people who lives near the wetland, and it means that the runoffs, the waste are all thrown into the wetland, and there is some other activities around which is not really good to be into the wetland. Like most of them is fruit trees and native ones. Among the trees, the varieties we have like papaya, we have avocado, we have citrus, we have mango, we have oranges and other varieties of native trees which are really very used into our traditional medicine, which are very needed by smallholder farmers because and indigenous people, because you know, there are some species that are being extincted and endangered. So what we have done is that whenever we see that plant, we try to grow them so that we can provide it to the people who really needs it and who knows what they're going to do it. Like among the value chain, how the trees is going to provide to them. Among the job creation through this initiative, there is other youth who got a job for watering every day, day by day. They work closely with the farm manager to know how the plants are growing. He is actually watering there is grafted citrus. That's what he is currently watering. A young lady, and we took this initiative alongside with other colleagues on how as youth we can try to contribute to the planet, and starting in our communities and alongside the other academic support that we can get to ensure like youth participation is on the high level, and young people are living the climate crisis, and they are living the present and the future at the same time. So we're asking to get the time, to get the space to be on the table with decision makers and high level people, so that we can know and we can participate when decisions are being taken for us to ensure the livable planet in the future. Because when you see the scenarios that are currently happening across the world, it's so terrified, and as young people
also reach out to the students to better learn with them how they can protect the environment at very early age.
There are more importance for this, because one of the benefits for the women, boosting their livelihoods daily, because some of the women who are working here are the one who were like into degraded lands, who were living near here. So all the wasters were all thrown into the wetland. They didn't know the importance of the wetland, but now they're helping others to understand how they can contribute to healthier planets. As a young lady and youth from the global south, it's still sad for our countries because our NDCs and policies are very clear, but they're not able to fund themselves and get access to the finance so that they can support like these actions for mitigations, and alongside with other mitigation measures and activities. So I'm just asking for those who will look for this video. In Africa, we are living extreme weathers. So one of the natural and activities that we can do is only tree planting, which is very easy, not really easy, but which could be close, and where we can, our communities can really try to understand quickly. But there are more other activities that we can do together with you, as long as there are some access to finance and funds provided. Hello. Oh, as you can see me, I'm in nursery tree planting. As I told you, as one of the main issue in Rwanda is now land degradation. So we have come up with an idea of how we can empower women and youth, how they can bring up like initiative that is going to help them to get money, to get income, and also contribute to the environment. We now working with 25 women. We working on their growing tree planting. As you can see alongside with me, we have avocados. We have the ones that are there are being grafted, but they are citrus and lime, and gonna be making a 12-month base. So we partnered with them to grow tree planting, as they didn't have like enough skills to grow them, and how are they going to, the trees, are they going to contribute to the environment? So we shared the knowledge and skills how they can grow the tree planting, so that it can help them to ensure to curb malnutrition. So what they do, we also help them to get access to the market through the smallholder farmers. As these trees that are here with me are the ones that they sell to the smallholder farmers, that they plant through agroforestry practices and woodlots. It's not only this nursery, but for this moment, we visited the one that was near our place. They are working hard, and they are contributing a lot, because the country is so big, and smallholder farmers, we know, are the ones that are living more impact of the climate crisis, and they are the ones that we should make sure that they are getting our contribution as soon as possible, because when the soil erosion comes, all their fruits, all their cash crops, they are eroded, their livestock is the same. So as we going faster, we're trying to empower them. As you can see me, there are also other crops. It's not only avocados. We have oranges, we have mangoes there, and all of them we're selling to the smallholder farmers, and we also providing some of the trees to the schools around this place. And why we provide those trees to the schools around this place is just to help the students know how they can contribute as little as they can. Oh, this is not only the nursery for women. Is also taken as a conservation place for students, especially in university, for those students who are currently undergoing studies which are related to the environment. They come here to learn how they can create, how they can pursue their studies like in practical, what they can do, and how trees are very essential and crucial when it comes to land degradation, and how they can restore land in their communities. It's not only about restoring degraded land, it's also about curbing malnutrition. like when we started this initiative, we found out more demand of people that are telling us that they need more trees. That's why we're trying to grow as many as possible, because we had an initiative to distribute at least 3 trees per household. That is going to help them to ensure their well-being and healthy nutrition among the household people, and also that we help to green the cities. Because imagine if like we have like 3 trees among the household, like the city will be green, and the nutrition, the importation of food and fruits will be very low. So that's what we're trying to help these women to grow and come up with that initiative that is helping them to get the income, to get their daily income, contribute to the environment, and as well it creates green job. It's now like as you can see, this is a degraded wetland where it was degraded by people who were living near this place. Like all the activities were currently depending on this wetland until it turns into degraded wetland. Hello everyone, my name is Faida Zubeda. I'm a climate activist currently based in Rwanda. Normally in Rwanda, the big problem that we have is land degradation, which is one of the issues that is now discussed into the government, how they can curb land degradation, and the government has committed the land restoration currently in Rwanda. So the main measure for land degradation is in Rwanda. There are lots, but currently we have soil erosion, we have deforestation, we have like poor farm management and cultivation, and all other land use mismanagement. Here the degraded wetlands that is located near the Kigali city. So far, what we have done as with my contribution, we have tried to raise awareness among smallholder farmers, and currently we work closely with students into universities and high schools. So far what we have done, we worked with smallholder farmers that are currently working the farming into that degraded land, how they can bring up new practices, agroecological, to restore the wetland, and also at the same time like having the healthier environment, having the fertile soil. As you can see, this soil is not fertile, but what we're doing is we're working closely, how we ensuring the capacity building for the smallholder farmer to make sure that they are not degrading land instead of restoring. So come with me. I'm gonna show you one of the activities that we have currently done.
Yeah. Saint Nelly said, Kampala, UG, Climate Live. Kakwate prophet wago byezi introduction ikuva Uganda Kampala city no hesitation. Tulese byo chasembele no revolution musabu jekiti geographic glaciation BOPQ city mu orders alphabet nzirese nkutte boda no nyamanya soda jono piti jino sirugambo walala kugamba so is a we cross borders gano madala mambo vipi nduse nai Afrika mashariki hapo vipi nduse dar alonda jafuna kunku mudanjola lumonde jatubudde bwatugenze ko daba chamu banji wendi wentukidde semanyi byendi ko semanyi byenkola jo banze ndi kwa panagwani biti Buganda bwange kamutuleko sichive sichabuswavu bwemmala muveko bwe muvako olotega radiyo nyumyeko chana chanyo chayasamye nyonga byonge yako tandise bazeketa semanya gange bitachityo chakula chityonga bana babi kutokukuluma nkusinga bakabya ne basinda emitego ntezo jikudde musanze chiwedde sigwayo ntera makujola bebwezinti asisemberera bwanziko kunsulida chitibwa ntibwa boba tomanyi kebera kudyo olukono nkomette bwejja n'ensigo tusimbe tuse sawa zino gomwatu twasazeko kugamba climate live Nellysaid yasazeko anti bisera bibadde biwanvu enkuba tuginoonya naye nga mwatu tekyuka oh climate yakyuka twebuzabuza lwaki waliwo enkyukakyuka kubanga tutakwata bidasti ne tuteeka mu myala mwatu ne zizibikira atenga oluusi tutema emiti egyandi tuyambye ennyo okuleeta bwokukakuba biseera bingi tutemagwe emiti okufuna amanda mbuno olwo tufumbe ate ne twerabira nti nno gigenda kuvaamu mwana wattu ebibi ngambe ebibi mwana wattu biva kuki enkuba ebula ngenda bwe nkugambye mwattu enkuba bwebula faatere tufumba olw'okubanga gasi bamwongeza twokyamanda ne gatujamba gogo mwana wattu ewaka okufumba emmere gwe mwattu ewaka ne twerabira nti nno bivaamu obuzibu ewaka kubanga climate ebeera ekyuse gwe mu nsi kakati ate bwe tuteekamu ebiri mu myala ne tuteekamu gwe mwattu ebiveera bwe tulya tusuula bwe tukwata obuveera oluusi ogenza oshopinze gwe mwattu n'osuula ne bwerabira ti n'enkuba bw'etonnya kigenda kuvaamu gwe mwana wattu amataba kyekyo kyolaba ne tufuna flooding gwe mwana wattu amatama ne gajja bibaddewo bingi kuva mu Western Uganda nga bwe wabulidde Sembabule gwe mwattu n'awalala era oluusi batugaana okuzimbayo mu ntobazi naye ffe mwana wattu ne tulemerako bwe tulemerako ne bivaamu ebizibu ne bagamba nti n'olwo olusozi gwe mwattu tozimbawo n'olemerako gwe era ng'ozimbawo y'ensonga lwaki mu Eastern Uganda bijja obadde nga gwe mwattu obiraba Embaale mwana wattu n'ebuduuda bakugaana okuzimba ku lusozi naye era gwe ne weewunzika gwe mwana wattu ozimbyewo ate emiti gwe gituyamba bingi kubanga oluusi giyambako okutuziba enkuba ne bwe beetonye nga ya kibuyaga tebeera tesobola kusuula gwe mwattu njuuyo bintu bingi era gwe bintu bingi St. Nellysaid Climate Live twasazeeko mu freestyle yes hey my name is St. Nellysaid Nsubuga, a Ugandan hip-hop artist from Kampala 256. That's my city. I just wanted to talk about climate change. I just wanted to talk about a few things that causes climate change. This is my area, this is my community, this is where I come from, in a place called Chira. So I wanted to talk something about deforestation. This is the cutting of trees, not only in forests, but in my area where I come from. It is a common practice. So many people cut trees for their own reasons. I mean, you know, gas is expensive, first of all. So clearly, it is easier to cut trees, burn them, and get charcoal for home use, you know. So this has caused a lot of change in our climate here, because at the end of the day, you'll find out that so many places around don't get enough rain like before. And on top of that, we always have this tendency of losing our houses when heavy rains comes, because that wind is not protected, cannot protect our houses. So we end up losing our houses and when it overrains. So it is a common practice around this area, and it has caused famine and drought in so many areas, not only around here but all over the country, because at the end of the day, when you don't get enough rain, you cannot grow food, you cannot grow crops and enough food to feed your family and sell for you to survive. Another thing, it is us. It is my responsibility, it is your responsibility to avoid all this. Because at the end of the day, if you go dumping everything in the swamps, in the road, in the lakes, in the river. It is a common practice here in Uganda. You buy something, you have a plastic bag. After eating something, you just throw in the swamps. After eating something, you just throw in the trenches. So most of these things we buy, they have recycle. But us Ugandans, me an African, I do not do that. I do not recycle these plastic things, plastic bags and buckets and everything. What we do, we end up dumping them in these places and our gardens. So it becomes very hard to keep these soils fertile for you to grow enough food. It becomes very hard to protect the trenches when it rains. So it has caused so many things like flooding. That's why we have so many flooding these days when it's raining in places like Western Uganda, Eastern Uganda, in Bududa and Bali. So when it rains, water cannot move freely like before. What happens? Those things we throw in the trenches and the rivers, they block the areas where water is supposed to flow from. So we end up getting those floods that has affected us. We've lost so many lives because of them, because we don't take it as a responsibility for us to protect these places. So in a nutshell, we've been part of the problem. We have been part of these problems because at the end of the day, we end up coming in the places, settling in the places where we are not supposed to settle. We build in places where we are not supposed to build. You understand? The government has tried somehow, but they have failed because they always advise us to leave swampy areas, because when it rains, it will be very hard for us to control the water flow. It will be very hard for the houses to be strong because of the swamps, you know. So it has always been our responsibility to avoid these places, because we are the ones that come where we are not supposed to be. So many places, for example in Kayunga here in the central region, people are cutting trees to plant sugarcane. These sugarcane you cut a tree and you plant a sugarcane. Yes, I love sugarcane myself. I love sugar, but I cannot cut a tree and I plant a sugarcane. That it doesn't make sense. My name is Saint Nelson, Climate Live. I will be back. Chikola Sense.